What's up, Trek Nation? Welcome back to Trek by Numbers on After the Snap. It's me, Tasha Pierce, and today I'm beaming in to review one of the most devilishly intriguing episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation. Devil's Due is our Season 4, Episode 13 entry for today. This one was written by Phil Lazebnik and directed by Tom Benko. The stardate was 44474.5, shortly after the events of Best of Both Worlds. The original air date for Devil's Due was February 4th, 1991. In it, Picard tries to save a terrorized planet and the Enterprise from a woman claiming to be the devil, who was returned after 1,000 years to claim the planet as she was promised. So let's face it, Devil's Due is not the most serious episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. It's actually pretty clear from the start that it's not meant to be taken too seriously, but did you know that the story for this episode dates all the way back to the late 1970s, when it was intended for the canceled series Star Trek Phase 2? That's right, it went through a ton of changes before finally making its way into TNG. Now, interestingly, Devil's Due is one of only 2 episodes that were originally planned for Phase 2 of Star Trek. The other one was called The Child from Season 2. It was heavily reworked to fit into TNG, and I don't think it hit like Devil's Due did. But anywho, let's get back. Despite its somewhat silly premise, the episode actually works quite well, at least for me. One reason for this is the timing of its release, which coincided with a series of high-profile televangelist scandals in the late 1980s. This made the idea of a charismatic figure claiming to have supernatural powers and using semi-quasi-religion for personal gain particularly relevant and intriguing. So, while it may not be the most serious or most thought-provoking episode of TNG, it's certainly a fun one to watch, especially with the added context of its history and the cultural moment in which it was released. In Devil's Due, we meet the main villain, Ardra, who's one charismatic and manipulated
Shut your mouth.
She arrives on Ventax 2 after 1,000 years of peace on the planet, claiming there was a contract between the inhabitants of this planet and herself. Now, the Ventaxians believe that the return of Ardra would be signaled by a number of signs. According to their legend, Ardra had made a contract with their ancestors promising them centuries of prosperity and happiness in exchange for their allegiance. However, after the contract was fulfilled, Ardra disappeared, leaving behind a prophecy that she would return to claim her payment at a later date. Now, as this new millennium approached, the planet Ventax 2 began to experience a series of mild earthquakes, and some of the citizens also claimed to have seen images of Ardra in the sky and in their rooms and just around. So these events were some of the signs that were said to be signaling Ardra's arrival. Okay, now, where was I? When these signs did eventually start to appear, the Ventaxians were convinced that Ardra had indeed returned, and they were willing to do almost anything to fulfill their end of the contract and avoid her wrath. Of course, it turned out that Ardra was not a supernatural being at all, but rather a con artist using advanced technology and deception to trick the Ventaxians into giving her what she wanted, which was complete control of their planet. Now, this episode perfectly illustrates Arthur C. Clarke's third law: any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Ardra, though, she wasn't content with just simply using her supposed supernatural powers to manipulate the Ventaxians. She also attempted to take control of the Enterprise, which was in orbit around Ventax 2. So in part, she tried to do this by seducing its captain, Jean-Luc Picard. Now, in a scene reminiscent of biblical temptation, Ardra appeared in Picard's quarters and tried to entice him not once, not twice, but 3 times. That's right, she tried to entice him thrice. Despite her best efforts, though, Picard was not swayed by Ardra's charms. Instead, he saw right through her and called her out for being both obvious and vulgar, and that was likely a low blow. It was a blow, at least, to Ardra's ego, as she had become accustomed to being able to manipulate others with ease. But Picard's unwavering moral compass and his firm sense of duty made him immune to her seductive tactics. Ardra may have had a captivating presence and impressive quote-unquote powers, but ultimately her intentions were self-serving, her claims were based on deception. Picard's resistance to her temptation serves as a reminder to always be wary of those who make these huge grandiose claims and offer these simple solutions to really complex problems. Ardra tries to seduce Captain Picard for a couple of reasons. Firstly, she sees him as a formidable adversary and believes that if she can get him on her side, it'll be easier for her to take over the Enterprise. Secondly, she's attracted to Picard's strength and intelligence, and she thinks that he would be a worthy conquest. Picard isn't so easily swayed by these advances, and he remains suspicious of her throughout this episode, so she wants to bring him down a notch. His refusal to give in to her seduction and his commitment to the truth is making things difficult for Ardra, and she can't achieve her goals. So in the end, Picard's resistance to her will lead to Ardra's downfall and her defeat by the Enterprise crew. Now, despite Ardra's attempts to take over the Enterprise, Captain Picard remains confident that she won't. He has Geordi working on finding the source of her apparent power, and the more she uses her quote-unquote magic, the closer Geordi comes to identifying where it's coming from. The captain is also determined to help the Ventaxians break free of her grip and regain their autonomy. So to do so, Picard proposes a legal hearing to determine the validity of the contract between Ardra and the Ventaxians. There's a loophole in Ventaxian law that allows for such a hearing to take place, and Picard is eager to use this to his advantage. He argues that the woman claiming to be Ardra is in fact not the supernatural being she claims to be, and to prove his case, he relies on his skills as a litigator as well as the expertise of his crew to uncover the truth. Ardra chose Data to be the arbitrator because, as an android, he's not swayed by emotions or personal biases, which is crucial in a legal proceeding where objective judgment is required. Additionally, Data's advanced technological abilities and vast knowledge make him well suited to evaluate the evidence presented during the hearing and come to a fair and rational decision. Picard agreed with her decision for another very important reason. Ardra wouldn't be able to intimidate Data, ensuring the outcome would be based on solid evidence rather than emotions or subjective beliefs. If Picard fails to prove his case, not only will Ardra continue to control the planet and the Enterprise, but Picard himself will be forced to become her concubine. Even though we know none of that will happen, this does add a sense of urgency to the situation, and it raises the stakes for Picard and his crew. The tension and suspense of the episode are heightened as they race against time to uncover the truth and free the Ventaxians from Ardra's grasp. But Picard has a bit of an uphill battle because the planet's leader is truly convinced that this woman is indeed Ardra. He doesn't accept that his own ancestors put in the work to make their planet a better place over a period of years. Instead, he believes a supernatural entity deserved the credit. But in the end, Picard does convince the Ventaxians by performing the same quote-unquote miracles that Ardra does and explaining how he does each one. Again, this episode isn't groundbreaking in many ways, but it does offer an interesting commentary on the dangers of blind faith. Ardra claims to have supernatural powers, just like some modern-day televangelists, and she uses her persuasive abilities to control people and sway their beliefs. She employs deceptive tactics like performing incredible feats to make her followers believe in her divine status. This is a common strategy used by many televangelists to establish their authority and gain more followers. The similarities between Ardra and these modern-day figures demonstrate the risks of blindly following charismatic leaders who use others' faith for personal gain. Overall, Devil's Due is an entertaining episode that tackles relevant issues such as religion and deception in an at least thought-provoking manner. It's also a testament to the enduring appeal of Star Trek that even its seemingly lighter episodes can be both engaging and philosophizing. I know my rating for this episode is going to be a bit controversial, but who cares? I gave it an 8. for having the audacity to shine a light on religious deceit, even if some individuals who hold religious beliefs may still struggle to acknowledge it. Tell me your thoughts on Devil's Due in the comments below, and use the hashtag TrekByNumbers to have it featured in a future episode. Speaking of future episodes, next week we move on to season 4, episode 13 of Deep Space Nine. This was titled Crossfire, and in it, Odo must face his feelings for Kira when she falls in love with First Minister Shakar, her former resistance leader. Another great episode to discuss, and I hope you'll join me for that. If you found this review/recap heavenly, smash the like button, subscribe, and turn those notifications to the on position so you won't miss a video or engage live, our weekly live stream. Support the show by donating via Super Thanks or becoming a member, like these philanthropic humanoids. Thanks for joining me for Trek by Numbers this week. I'll see you in the next one. Live long and prosper. Peace.